Let's do the entire screen. It's the safest thing. Break. Yeah. Right. Agenda is visible?
Yes.
Okay. So welcome to the meeting today. We have had apologies from Fatima, Fiona, Omar and Mervyn. And I know Jay declined the meeting as well, wasn't available today. Has everyone reviewed the previous minutes? I can see Matt nodding. Everyone else on the screen looks like they have. Yeah, okay. Well, let's have a look at the action points from that. So let's go straight to that. Open. Oh, that's nice. There we go. So we assume all of this is correct. And we'll just run through the action points quickly. So first action point was for me to add optometry to the subgroup membership categories, which I have. I think, Matt, there was something to think about terms of reference in general, wasn't there?
Yeah, so I have added this to the agenda for the next meeting via the next time. What we as for we have got a document now on the forum. Rush has produced that, so she's produced a kind of terms of reference for ISCET generally.
Yeah.
And if you want to take a look at that after the meeting, go to the forum. The topic is ISCET General Membership and Ethics Framework Draft Review. So Rush has produced quite a detailed document of committees and so on, but it's a start towards a kind of more formal structure for how ISCET can do things going forward. And obviously this and the other subcommittee that's currently ongoing are able to feed into that with regards to what we've learned about what's worked and what's not worked so well from these. So yeah, so that would be great to include. That covers, you know, all aspects, so both the composition of the committees, but also the kind of technologies we're using to run this, to make decisions and so on. So so that'll be brought up in the main ISCET meeting, which I'm not sure when that's going to be. I've asked Russia to schedule that as soon as we can, because we've got quite a lot now to talk about and it's been a while.
Okay, right, so we'll see where our little terms of reference fit into the main.
Yeah, and I should say, actually, Helena, the terms of reference you produced for this group have now been sent out for adoption through the other subcommittee, the survey subcommittee.
Okay.
So yeah, it's all making differences.
Okay. Yeah, so then next point was for me to add standing item to review membership composition at each meeting. So I have done that with today's agenda. And for today, we do need to note the withdrawal of one person, Diedrich. Not ever pronounce that surname. Diedrich Niehorster?
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I will minute it correctly. And it's just due to the lack of time to be able to contribute to the committee's work. And then, yeah, you've done the composition requirements. And then we drafted the combined definition and purpose statements for the fixation protocol or guidance. And that has been circulated for comment, and we used a shared OneDrive Word document to do that, which seemed to work for most people, I think. I haven't heard back from anyone else apart from, I think there was 2 or 3 where they lost access when everything updated, I think on this end. So we will look at that later. Larry, you and Fiona, you were gathering literature on sampling rates.
There I am.
Spatial position and bandwidth limits for the technology bit of this. Yeah.
Fiona and I were just in touch for the first time today, so clearly we've been collaborating a lot. And she produced. Had she sent everyone the document she wrote, or no?
There's comments on our shared document, but there isn't a separate document that I'm aware
She had a separate document she did in LaTeX, so it's beautifully formatted. A lot of it is sort of more focused on vestibular testing. So there's a lot of discussion of sampling rates needed to resolve saccades adequately and low velocity slow phases. I wrote just a couple pages, which is a selection of relevant papers. And I guess the thing I've raised before is I still make a distinction between recordings done for clinical purposes and those done for research.
Yeah.
Because I think the standards for doing research studies are higher than those for clinical testing. And I tried to reflect that in the papers I chose. And would it be worth, one possibility would be to try and combine the two documents, or do we want to make that distinction? Because
Yeah.
the clinical testing I've been doing for the last here for 30 years is all descriptive. So there are specifications, actually, of the points listed in that table. Actually, I think none of those are as critical as, say, raise of gaze angles accommodated, ability to compensate for deal with head position, because those relate to things that clinicians ask me for.
Yeah.
And I pulled up the 1975 paper by Daroff and Deloso, where they defined the canonical waveforms. And some of those data were acquired at 25 hertz bandwidth. So would it be worth me writing up something that was explicitly divided by the relevant task? In other words, research quality versus clinical requirements? Because I could certainly,
Is that Matt suggesting something? And then Ruth?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say what we have discussed so far, and I think that was within the subcommittee, so correct me if I've misremembered, that was to define both an ideal standard, which would be ideal clinical, research can kind of go further,
yeah.
and then a minimum standard, which would be what you would try to get as bare bones in the case of maybe testing children. So those would be those are the two things we've discussed so far. I think we can, for research purposes, that's always going to be bespoke to the thing being tested. So I think we don't need to go that far, personally.
Okay. Well, I had to record a 11-month-old last week, and let's just say the calibration was nil, because we're mom holding baby up in front of island camera, and once we got baby's attention, baby was moved across the screen, but we got enough recording to confirm it was INS, and there was an unusual portion of it, which, while it's totally uncalibrated, I think is relevant. So, yeah, I could certainly draft something up. And how about if I get in touch with Fiona and see if we can take some of what she's written and put that into a single document?
I think that'd be an excellent idea, because I do
I
remember
will
that
do that.
conversation, Matt. We did say let's define what we minimally need for clinical use, and also we can also provide what's our ideal.
And I think one other thing that comes up, there's some conditions at the moment where pretty much no existing eye tracker really lets us examine things adequately. Like, for instance, null position with the head tucked on one shoulder, or nulls that are out at 40 degrees. And one of the reasons I keep mumbling about the Pupil Labs Neon is they claim to be able to do that. But I would like actually to demonstrate whether it can or not, and we're getting one. But there are clinical situations where I don't believe any of the currently marketed systems really can do what I'm asked to provide and I think it would be worth noting the desired but not yet available as well.
Limitations, recognized limitations.
Yeah, thank you. It's 11:30 here almost, and my vocabulary is slipping. But yeah, limitations.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be in touch with Fiona.
Yeah, that sounds excellent. Ruth? I'm sure you have something, some insights from your experience on this.
So probably just chiming with what Matt says. So divergence of documents like these are not helpful. But writing a single minimum standard, which can be applicable in a clinical situation or in a research situation, is super helpful and can be expanded at any point. Regulators for clinical trials love standards. They love seeing that people can adhere to them. And there's always the possibility, of course, of going further. It's never a constraining thing, a standard. It's simply a minimum. So it's just worth restating that again. Having a research standard and a clinical standard will probably not help patients and won't help research. You can build on a minimum for whatever the needs are. The other really important point I just wanted to make was with your chat about the 11-month-old. All of the ISF standards have a section in them that addresses the issue of pediatric compliance, where we have to acknowledge you cannot expect a kid to do the same as you would expect an adult in most circumstances. And here's how we don't even offer ways of getting around it. We simply acknowledge that you may need to do modifications in pediatrics, as Herman and Jan well know.
That's for instance, bandwidth, that the minimum standard could actually be below 100 hertz. If you look at a lot of the classic papers done in the late 70s, early 80s, generally systems were 100 hertz or below, and were quite adequate to provide data that is sufficient for clinical testing. I think because we have systems now that can run at 1 kilohertz or 2 kilohertz, it's easy to think you need that. But I think as a clinical standard, you do not. So let me take Fiona's stuff. I'll get back in touch with her and try and frame a single recommendation that addresses the points in the minutes, but also addresses the technology in not just bandwidth, but also a range of gaze angles, binocularity, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But so that I don't want the ideal to be the enemy of the adequate.
Yeah, perfect. Perfectly said.
Thank
Larry.
you. Now I can nod off again.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah, I had a question just to follow up with Ruth. So just with regards to how you do things with ISEV, because it's been a really good model for us in ISCET, are you suggesting that, so rather than, because what I had in my head was we would have an absolute minimum, which would be like the infant protocol versus the ideal, which would be the adult protocol. Are you suggesting you say there's one protocol, but in pediatrics, you just acknowledge, I guess like you do in any kind of clinical testing, that you may not quite be able to meet this standard and that's acceptable? Is that how you do things?
Yeah, that's how we do it. And I think that you need the flexibility in the pediatric stuff and away with less flexibility in the adult stuff. So rating your minimum standard for your average cooperative adult is really helpful. And it's not just pediatrics, it's special populations. So just to acknowledge that for some kids and some people, it would be really difficult for them to comply. And then you make adaptations, and look, they can be anything that you want. They don't have to be prescribed in your guideline. They can simply be things that you understand amongst yourselves or describe in your papers or whatever.
Got it. Okay, so we're writing a single standard with acknowledgement that things can change if required. And also, I just wanted to follow up on Larry's point, which was that we don't really have an adequate eye tracker available at the moment to be able to track. I mean, some of the head-mounted displays ones maybe, but to get those really far gaze angles, we've always been, since the remote ones, maybe you can get plus or minus 30 degrees, but even that's a stretch. And it's not really what we need to do properly. So I agree, we need to be able to, we don't want to provide something at the end of this saying like nothing can do this, so who can adopt it?
No.
But we can say this is what we want, this doesn't yet exist, so in the meantime we're all going to have to use something not quite as good, I guess. Hopefully that will push manufacturers to actually come up with such a thing.
All right, Ruth and Larry.
Yeah, that was just exactly the point I was making. If you put it in a clinical standard and that's what people want in their clinical trials and what people are expecting for the patients, then the manufacturers will deliver it.
Great.
hopefully.
I just wanted to add that I think for pediatric, well, I'll find out because I've got a 4-year-old coming tomorrow, but usually from 4 up, at least many children that age, I can do the basic fixations across gaze angles protocol, but I would say infants and toddlers, you just take what you can get. So I wouldn't just say pediatric, but I would say infant and toddler, and then above that. And once we get our neon, as soon as we get a cooperative nystagmus patient with a bit of extra time, I will ask them to be recorded with that and try and report back on whether it looks like it's a promising device. But I don't know yet.
Okay. So that was some great conversation. Ah, Andreas.
Yeah, we
Where put my
just
hand?
got 25 neon systems, and
Ah.
we're doing larger studies, and I'm recording also with stroke patients and with neglect, which are heavy to calibrate, and it works really good, better than expected. I have 15 different systems, some iLinks, some search coils, and so forth. And I didn't expect the data quality as good as it is. And it runs with more than 200 hertz. And there is a paper by Mack et al. 2019 showing that if you have 200 hertz or more, you can properly separate saccades from fixations, and this is important for the detection of saccades and drift in nystagmus. And therefore, so my recommendation would be 200 hertz and more. And in this paper, they show from recording frequencies from 25 hertz to 2 kilohertz and compare them, and they show from 200 hertz above. It is quite good to be used.
That's very encouraging.
Right. So let's just go back to our agenda, see where we are. I think we've covered off some of the agenda. So the next action was a review of literature search to inform technology requirements. So we've covered that off. The next bit is review protocol components and comments. So I've circulated documents just in case people weren't able to access the OneDrive. But I'll just bring it up here, and it'd be good to try and just consolidate a lot of this and agree as much as possible, and then decide actions going forward to try and complete this. So can everyone read that? Because I know I have this on the second screen, so I don't know what it looks like on your screen. So the first one was that brief overview of tests and purpose of the standard. So Rebecca did try and consolidate the definition, and I think we've had a few useful suggestions here. So I guess we can just see if we can agree this definition and then move on. So the first comment was, oh yeah, so this guidance documents, that sounds reasonable. And objective quantitative assessment of eye. So we have position there, but eye movement there, and Gemma suggested position. What do people feel about that? Changing movement to position? Is
Do you
it the
have
same?
both?
Can we have both? I guess we could. Would it
Position
cause any...
relative within the head and thinking about like where we are position wise is going to be different, the actual movement and the motion itself. So that's why I'm kind of wondering, would both be relevant for this?
We could go
Eye position in the orbit.
like that. Well, we could just go eye position / movements.
Yeah.
That should cover. I can't think of any other combination.
Yeah.
So we could
They're
say,
moving or they're not.
yeah, so we'll resolve that. And then next one was while attempting to focus on, I think on sounds
On?
reasonable there. Yeah.
I think on. Yeah.
Okay. Andreas?
Eye position, is it really essential for nystagmus? I think eye in head is the more important thing, so the eye movements, than the eye position in space. So particularly with the neon system, you have eye in head data,
Yeah.
but you can transfer them to eye in space. They give some Python code where you can transfer from eye in head to eye in space, and calculate the current eye, the head position in space with the eye position in space. This works, but nevertheless, aren't we interested in the nystagmus, in which is eye in head?
Yeah.
I agree. Eye in head is more relevant for this kind of work.
I agree. Yeah.
Just to clarify, we're currently working on the fixation protocol, which can be extended for nystagmus later, but this applies to both, I believe, and eye in head is probably clinically what we tend to be more interested in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Andreas, is that you again? Yeah. No. Okay, that's fine. Okay, we're on 1 point. Cross out. I think that was it. Cross that out during a fixation task. And then
Arguably, you could remove during a fixation task because that is the fixation task.
yeah. Yeah, let's simplify that, because the
Yeah,
more
that's just
complicated a
redundant.
sentence is,
Yeah.
less readable it becomes. Okay. The assessment allows, take out precise. I'd agree with that, actually, because then that gives us a bit of flexibility when it comes to the more difficult recordings.
Yes. My children.
So,
are you
exactly.
Are you allowing footnotes in this document? Did you hear that, Helena?
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
we
it's
haven't
just
decided what the document will look like yet.
Look, I'm just thinking, if you've got eye in head, it's you're writing this for clinical audience, aren't you? You just wonder whether people are going to get a bit confused if you're kind of trying to define everything technically. But what you could do is have a footnote down to the bottom to define precisely what you mean by that, rather than breaking up the document with lots of little definitions. Might be a bit more readable. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You don't need to decide now, but I'm just
making
well, you
a
need to
note.
make sure it ends up as a kind of a very technical and readable document when you can get the detail into footnotes so that it doesn't break up, I
agree. I think maybe, when this is all done, it might be worth maybe Helena or somebody just going through for sanity check that because when you do anything as a committee like this, we're going to end up with the wording will start to get a bit janky, but this will.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on the assessment allows characterization of fixation stability and detection of any ocular oscillation and or instability, for example. So that all sounds reasonable. Nystagmus, saccadic intrusion, etc. So we can probably go accept. So I'm trying to do this as I go along, but maybe it's not not so simple. The document provides practical guidance by defining minimal acquisition criteria and facilitates broader use of eye tracking in clinical practice, enabling conformity and allowing cross-evaluation between centers as opposed to labs, which does make sense in terms of it might not necessarily be a research center, but centers can cover labs. Matt?
Helena, can I just check? Did we say that we were going to have two separate ones, one for the acquisition and one for the analysis, or is this one analysis of that fixation as well?
We said we were going to leave out the specifics of analysis. We were just going to work out how we're going to do it and the technology requirements, and then analysis was going to come separately.
Cool. Okay.
That's how we started anyway.
Fine.
Onyeka?
Hi, sorry to draw you back, but I'm just looking at the second sentence, which is attempting to consciously focus one point. I feel maybe for consistency with the third line, which talks about fixation stability, maybe we should say whilst attempting to consciously fixate on one point, because focus could mean accommodation or something in that concept.
Just maybe fixate. Whether you were wondering
not consciously, the focus. Maybe we
Okay,
should put it at fixate, yeah.
Yeah, but then do toddlers consciously fixate?
Well, I just felt for
Just wondering.
consistency. Well, since we're going to put a caveat regarding the toddlers and the pediatric population, I
We
just
could
feel,
just say just while attempting to fixate,
yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I agree.
because in an attempt to simplify this and make sure it gives that flexibility.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, and that looks like we've got the definition then.
Great.
Right, so I'll do all the deletions and things afterwards. Summary changes, not applicable at the moment. Physiological origins. So I think, Ruth, you said something, yeah, you commented here that some ISCET tests are also incompletely understood. But a brief outline. Oh yeah, setting the understood physiology would be very useful. So I guess we could try and write something brief here. It doesn't have to be a detailed essay or, chapter, right? Just kind of a rough, this is what we think we know
Yeah. Because
or understand
that could
about
get
fixation.
that could get very detailed very quickly in the rostral pole of the colliculus.
Well, I'm just going to check. Does anyone here do undergraduate lectures involving and have a bit on explaining fixation in one of their lectures, maybe? That would be the kind of thing we'd want, maybe just a bit more.
I think
Larry,
I do.
No, it looks to
Oh,
be
I was going to say you're already
volunteering.
doing something.
I know. I'd like somebody else to do it, but I gave some lectures remotely for Hong Kong Poly U, and I had to cover some of this, but I'd be really happy if somebody else did that as well.
Okay. Is there anyone else
But
who
if
does
not,
that?
let me know. I
No. I
can.
was like, if you can't do it, I'll do it. Just send me the adapter or
Okay.
something.
I'll chase that up.
I'll give myself something to do if no one else can do that.
Oh,
We can also, invite somebody with, who's more involved in the research side of fixation to contribute to this. I mean, a lot of people who have come into this have come in from a clinical angle, but there's nothing wrong with us seeking external support. I'm sure that people will be happy to be invited.
Yeah.
see
We'll
who's
take
written
that as
on
an
it
action point.
recently.
Yeah. That'll be Larry and I shall look into that.
We shall, Helena.
Right, then clinical applications. So this has a few comments on it. Okay. Oh yes, this is a statement we altered, reworded during the meeting. So there's not so much crossed out on this. So I assume and then we had.
So I was just saying that it kind of repeats itself in the brackets.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that out. It makes sense. I'll just put it in just so that people can see it in context. We are repeating ourselves.
You could, if you wanted to, keep the instability thing, you could put just IN in brackets before the word stability, and that would cover both.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Or just say stability without IN, because it's kind of implicit that if it's not stable, it's unstable.
Up here we could just go.
Oh, not as in infantile nystagmus. I'm just talking about. I think actually maybe just deleting the parentheses would do the job. I meant you could say fixation instability, but actually, if you just delete the parentheses entirely, it kind of is all implicit anyway. I don't know if that's too implicit now, but.
If you're assessing fixation stability, that assumes you're also checking for instability. So. Okay. Looks all reasonable, and we just have to resolve the populations may include, and we just have a lot of discussion around this last time about how much do we want to include. So it's a may include, so that it's not a completely exclusive, complete list, basically. So adults and older children with suspected cerebellar disorders, neurodegenerative diseases, we want to put nystagmus in there as well because we've done pediatric with nystagmus.
Yeah, but adults can have it. We see a lot of adult patients, so
with congenital
with nystagmus.
with,
Well, with infantile
or
nystagmus.
acquired.
So and acquired, So,
Yeah.
but the adults seem to have lost the opportunity to have INS in that first bullet point.
Vestibular eating disorders.
Yeah.
So
Very
can I just comment?
Yeah.
So when I was pulling all this bit together, it felt a bit bitty.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. You know, like we might be including some things and not other things. And I know that we've kind of written populations may include, and maybe it's just me wanting to try and include everything. But do you understand? Does that make sense when I say bitty?
Yeah. Well, it's really detailed. It's really detailed, and maybe it doesn't need to be quite that detailed.
And I think Ruth actually made a comment with regards to how prescriptive we are on something else, and it kind of occurred to me that actually that it would fit for. I don't know, Matt, what is your feeling?
My initial feeling is, do we need this section at all? I think we might need to go back to Ruth and say, have we adopted this from ISEV, where maybe there's a more defined list of conditions? I'm also aware, by the way, that Russia's got a hand up. So I wonder if we could just remove it.
See, we could take this all out, and the little bullet point we have there actually gives a good indication of what you're looking for. Yeah, Russia?
Yeah. Hi, thank you. Well, if we're gonna keep it, like I was looking for people with vision impairment, or like people, here, whether adults or children, because these are certain entity also. But I'm still thinking, like whether we keep it or not. That's a bigger issue. But so far, if it stays, I think it's worth to put people with vision impairment.
Is it worth making those a bit more general?
Yeah,
that's what we're saying. We're just
agree.
wondering whether trying to specify populations means that we risk leaving out some.
So I think that was the point I was going to make. One of the difficulties with a list is that people will look at the list and say, oh, my particular patient isn't on there. So either you write down everything, which is not feasible in a document like this, or you leave what's now reading like a really helpful general statement. And if your patient happens to fit into an individual who needs their eye movements assessed for all of these particular conditions, then they're eligible. So I kind of think you've already done it before you got onto the populations paragraph, is my feeling.
I actually think,
I agree.
If I really want to make this readable, that would go.
Yeah, agreed.
Matt?
So I'm completely on the fence about this, but I just wanted to point out we have to look at this from the perspective of people who aren't doing eye tracking already, and so these documents may be quite a useful introduction for some people for the sorts of things that eye tracking can be used for. I was actually looking at the ISCET website this morning, and it occurs to me at no point on the website do we say how eye tracking is actually useful clinically. We just sort of go straight into it because we all, that's our start point. And so while I completely agree it's hard to give a definitive list without making it really spiraling out of control, at the same time we need to there needs to be some indication of, hey, this is a thing you can use in these populations. Maybe fixation is actually not so unobvious. When you come to CAD testing, there's always neurodegenerative conditions which people don't realize, so that we've got to think about education as well.
But that will all come after we've defined this, and you kind of go, right, say for example, I've got someone who I suspect has a form of nystagmus. I'm not sure if it's infantile. This is how I would apply it. Or you can start doing clinical scenarios.
Okay, that's a good point. And actually, one of the things ISET will be doing will be defining those thresholds for diagnoses, having got the normative or the reference data set. So maybe, you're right, it comes later.
Ruth again?
So it was simply to say that one of the things that we sometimes do, or that you can do if you want, on publication of this guideline, you can accompany it with, for example, an editorial that would set the clinical scene. And the other thing that ISCET is ready to support is webinars that allow you to introduce them to anyone that's interested. Have you just spotted this? Sign up for a webinar, and then you can run through clinical examples and so forth so that people can see how it's useful. So rather than the document doing all the work, it's supportive education and engagement.
Okay, so keep it
It's
simple.
Yeah, it's the foundation that we can start adding to and use for clinical examples, I think. Onyeka?
I totally agree with everything everyone is saying, and I like my thoughts with having it more simplified. But I want to spot the healthy controls of volunteers for baseline. I think they should be highlighted out as well. So if we're summarizing all the other conditions as eye movement abnormalities, then we should also list out healthy controls of volunteers as one other group of people that the guidelines applies to. That's what I think. Because I said previously on that populations that may include.
Yeah, so this is under clinical applications section.
Yeah.
Ruth, what does ISCET do about normal populations?
You mean reference data?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have well, back in the day, we used to say with every standard, oh, you've all got to collect your own. But we're now a bit more understanding that in some instances that's simply unachievable. And so on our website, we've started to collate other people's reference data with guidance on how to safely adopt it in your own centre. As well as gold standard, if you have got £10,000 to spare to go and collect your own reference data, great, here's how you would do it. And our idea is that we're going to collate a big data set, which would allow people to start from scratch, buy their kit, get going, and have a reasonable idea of how they're judging things from the offset. So our standards no longer say you're obliged to collect your own. The most recent standard has a really helpful statement that we'll come across it in just a second, but it will say something very helpful, like, I actually just got it here. Sorry, just it went down almost there. It's under the reporting section. So it says reference ranges, establishing laboratory-specific reference values is the optimal process involving recruiting and testing 120 reference subjects per partition, blah, blah, blah. If reference data from elsewhere are used, for example, manufacturers' data or published data, they must be verified as appropriate for local use with an understanding of possible limitations and how the reference limits were defined.
That actually sounds like if we had this similar for eye movements. Matt, what do you think? Could we do that?
That's in our VAP standard.
Yeah.
One of the key aims, as stated for ISCET, is to do this from the outset. So when these things when we have guidelines, we're going to need to come up with a system whereby clinics can feed into that. Saying these are my parameters. This is the type of screen I'm using. This is the type of thing I'm using. And ideally, we'd have a central database so it all goes in straight away. And so you end up with this kind of mega database of that. That could be that it's going to be a mammoth task in and of itself, because there's the data protection side of it, but certainly yes, we would be hoping to build one large data set in that respect. And I guess we could still say, look, if you want the absolute best precision, you're going to go and create your own reference data set, just as with ISEV. But hopefully, because we have the foresight of being able to do this from the outset, that could be done as a collaborative effort. That's a big task for another day.
So what we would need is some sort of normative data statement in the guideline, wouldn't we?
Yeah, in the guideline, yeah, but I guess that would be, does that need to go into this? It could be more of a kind of overarching statement that applies separate to ISCET fixation guidelines. Otherwise, we'd be duplicating it across the guidelines. Yeah. Unless, Ruth, you think there's a good reason is there something specific about individual guidelines that would require us to repeat that statement?
I mean, as it happens, ISEF has a separate statement in every guideline, and what it says depends on how old the guideline is because they're evolving. So you
Okay.
could bypass that by simply saying in each of your guidelines, please refer to the ISEF guideline, the ISCET guideline on use of reference data,
Yeah,
and then you
okay.
can update that whenever you want.
So we'll try and handle this in a separate document. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Right. So we're doing much better than last time. We're now on to section 5, which we already discussed earlier, but we shall go through this again just to make sure we've covered off everything. So technology, and we all agreed last time we should try and evidence-base this. And I think, Larry, you just highlighted how much variety there is. And I think Fiona's put in loads of comments as well. So, and there's references appearing here that we need to consolidate. So I guess, is that going to be your magic document, Larry?
I think so. And I think also there's the issue is in Sion's comment there about head-mounted versus desktop, because that actually does play a role in what you can record, especially with regard to INS.
Yeah.
Head tilts are very, very bad with desktop cameras.
So then we've got Lee.
Yeah, the fixed frame rate.
I just wanted to point out that lots of the things that are suggested here are very helpful, but possibly some of them are more about nystagmus per se than fixation.
Yeah.
So we would need to just separate those out, and because we're going to be developing a nystagmus guideline following on from this one.
Yeah, it's worth having all this anyway in mind.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah.
There's quite a lot.
Yeah.
Very useful.
Because
practically writing the next one, aren't we?
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking of the nystagmus one because some of the issues for resolving really small fixational line movements are put more stringent demands on the hardware and the software than does nystagmus testing, because you may be looking at really small, very fast movements.
Yeah.
So that.
But we want to make sure we're not specifying particular manufacturers or hardware.
No, because that changes.
Otherwise, that makes it restrictive.
No,
what people are able to use. Yeah, but
there are things like frame rate and resolution may be more stringent if you're studying, microsaccadic eye movements and fixation than if you're studying INS.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're on to the meat, clinical protocol.
Let's
see if we can what is that, shall we? So that's your comment about some of this is going into nystagmus protocol.
Yeah.
And then if we compare this with evidence.
Yeah, I saw PAN in there, so yeah.
I guess that's a note. Yeah, you need to know duration, and you need to set the appropriate duration depending on what question you're looking for or asking for, isn't it?
I should add to this would be, if people were doing a fixation protocol, they came in with the patient came in with some kind of abnormal eye movement, you'd start with the fixation one, and there may be a specific amount of duration for that. And then when you identify, hey, look, here's nystagmus, you then evolve it into the nystagmus protocol if you didn't already do that. So we can still set a defined duration, and it's okay for the nystagmus protocol to say, right, you're doing this, but you're doing it for this long in these many positions and so on.
Okay. So default 30 seconds. Minimum 10 seconds. Any arguments with that?
I guess if we're going with the idea of having a single defined protocol, we don't want to be saying a default and a minimum now. We can just say the default is 30. But in pediatric populations, infants and babies, you aren't going to be able to achieve that, and that's accepted.
Okay.
And PAN is clearly to do with infantile nystagmus.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go default 30 seconds here, right?
Yeah.
Just go with that.
There's probably evidence. I think that might have been what I put in there, and that's that's just what we do. And there's maybe a very good argument for you don't need 30 seconds if you're just looking for basic fixation. Maybe 10 is enough. Right.
So there's a
we
job
need to
for
look at the
someone.
evidence.
We need to evidence. So shall we allocate evidence for duration of target to someone?
If you're looking for square wave jerks.
Yeah, I think every single every sort of hard number we put in here, 1 degree, 30 seconds, they're all going to require some evidence. And actually, in a lot of cases, the evidence isn't necessarily out there. It may be that we just have to just all decide on something for this first version of the guideline. That's why it's called a guideline the first time around. And if we get doing it and everyone says, look, we don't need 30 seconds, then when it becomes a standard, we reduce it.
Okay, so what the next sensible job would be to identify the relevant evidence for each thing that's listed here.
Yeah,
and
we
if
probably
there
need
is
to
no evidence, we could do a survey of everyone here about what they actually do and see if we end up with like a 70% majority saying whatever, or set a threshold or something like that, just to give us somewhere to start.
That sounds very sensible. So I think what we need is a table of all the hard parameters.
Yeah.
And then we can assign people to go away and do their research on that particular parameter. Is there evidence out there? If not, then we do our survey.
Okay, yeah. So the next question is, have we got every parameter? I'm finding it hard to find something we would also need. Rasha?
Well, I'm thinking clinically, usually I would note whether the patient has abnormal head posture before actually correcting it. So starting with positioning the patient, if clinically speaking, I would first like maybe show him the target and all the other steps, and then note whether he's using an abnormal head posture, and then I would fixate it. I would ask him to look primary. So this, I believe, would give valuable information later on as a patient profile.
Size of target, okay, and right, so patient positioning. That was also in their note of head posture before stabilizing.
Yeah, before the head stabilize. I mean, before putting him on this chin rest, and also I wonder if all patients with nystagmus, because sometimes also they have the nodding or the head detubation. I'm not sure how much we can use the chin rest with each and every one of them, but I mean, before fixing the head posture, I would just like to note it maybe.
Yeah, so yeah, I would normally do that clinically before anyway, the actual eye movement task.
I would agree with that. I think that's outside of it.
That would be within the nystagmus protocol almost kind
Yeah.
of, and even within the clinicians asking for the eye movements should have hopefully noted things like that.
Yeah.
You would hope.
Well, depends who you're working with, doesn't it? But I would have hoped. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously every centre's different, aren't they?
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think?
The reason I'm staring is I can't think where I land on this. I mean, yes, the ISCET standards are meant to be about the things you do with an eye tracker per se, but when the patient sits up to the eye tracker, the abnormal head posture is part of that. So I really don't know which side this falls on the fence. Maybe it could be noted, and if we feel that later on that we're starting to define too many things that are not eye tracking, then we can claw back on that. But I think it's a valid important. If somebody sits up to the eye tracker, yeah, I don't know.
Does that fall? So if we go down to the bottom of the list, we've got what to monitor during testing.
During testing, yeah.
So would that maybe
that come in under that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that
should we keep it in for now, because it doesn't feel like it's a million miles away from eye tracking, even if it isn't eye tracking data per se, and then we can always choose later on to say this is about an ancillary test. Because then you could also go on, what about head oscillations and so on, and changing of head position. Sometimes with nystagmus, people will move between two nulls.
Photophobia, all sorts of things.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff you could talk about.
Okay, right. So this is a pretty comprehensive list. So I think we should divvy these up and allocate the evidence search. But some things will have more evidence, and some will be a lot harder to do, and then we'll have to decide on surveys for the rest, right?
I feel That's
So I
fair.
imagine there's not going to be a massive evidence base for patient positioning, right? That's just described in everyone's, or should be described, right?
Well, there's
This seems
14 items on
likely.
this list, and there's 15 of us here, so we could pretty much all take one of these. And I mean, there's also another 10 people in the committee as well. But
Right, we could allocate them to the 10 people that aren't here. Well, I guess that's what we should do then. I mean, like, I think I would say we could leave Larry out of it a bit because he's got a big job to do already in terms of tech.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Larry and Fiona. So that
Please, may I
leaves-
also be this
Oh yeah, and
kind
Ruth.
of
It'd be a bit unfair for
particular
Ruth.
task? Sorry, I
that-
don't sit with enough expertise for this.
Yeah. So that comes down to is it exactly the right number?
So Helena, so why don't you and I just
We'll go through it
it'll just
afterwards.
be a bit of a lucky dip, and we'll just email out rather than
Yeah,
keep
we'll do a
it-
random number allocations, just so it's completely random and no favoritism.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about time as well for this
Yeah.
meeting. We are running much better than the last meeting, but I'm just thinking if we won't get through. Should we just do
Okay.
that?
Yeah, I will do random number allocations, and we just
Yep.
assume everyone here, about the people we've just excluded, are willing to take a topic, and I think 1 or 2 people might end up with 2, but we'll just see what makes sense.
well, because there's 10 people not here, you could also say there's a second person to work on each one who are not here.
Oh yeah, so we'll allocate a second person that's not
from
here.
those that are not here.
Yeah. Hopefully you get a buddy that you can work with, eh? Right, and then pediatric recording. So I guess we'll just have a statement there. You'd have Ruth, you generally just have a statement about just adapting it really to the pediatric setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just an acknowledgement that you may not be able to meet the standard above exactly,
Yeah.
but do what you can.
Okay, and then artifact handling. Do we
This
wanna
is
come
getting
back?
into the analysis.
Yeah, should we maybe place a hold on that? We've got that, we were discussing that, but then that's getting into managing the data and analysis.
And some of this, by the way, will be a kind of general one that can apply to pretty much like blink detection and pupil thresholds. You know, those are general eye tracking and don't have to sit within fixation as such.
Yeah. Okay, that actually gets us to the end. Somehow today we actually made it to the end before the end of the meeting. So is everyone clear on next steps?
Yeah.
Have we got?
I think so. And my job.
You got a job. Okay, so I'm gonna ask Larry, because you probably have the biggest job, you and Fiona. How long do you think you need to, because we don't want you killing yourself, but
No, I'll get in touch with Fiona about it because I think what she wrote mostly would cover non-nystagmus related things, more related to fixation, because a lot of the details she was looking at, I don't think are really relevant to nystagmus. But I think we can combine that because we came from very different directions, and then add some of the points that came up during the discussion today. I would think a couple weeks, probably, if possible.
if we set the next meeting for about 2 months' time to give everyone a chance to do their bit, collate the evidence, and maybe even give a chance for people to circulate things in advance, because we've now got multiple jobs being distributed, so some jobs will be quicker than others.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Okay, so roughly 2 months, and any other business then? Okay, well, that's it. We'll bring the meeting to a close. I'll stop recording, and then I'll just catch up with Rebecca afterwards to try and see how we sort out the jobs.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Bye. And go to bed. Night.
Bye.
Afternoon.